There are a few different things you can add to your Google site that we haven't talked about yet. So, a few things we're going to talk about in this video are embedding Google folders into your Google site. We're going to talk about adding different collaborators to your site to have them work on the site alongside with you. We're going to talk about editing some of the different tiles or sections of your site to look a little different so that you can separate your content a little more effectively. And then finally, we'll talk about some different font styling that you can do and different ways that you can stack your content within your site to give it a different look. So the first thing I want to show you is how to embed an entire folder of documents to your site. This comes in really handy when you have a bunch of documents to share to visitors, but you don't want to link or embed them all individually. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is go over to the right side of the page and click on the Insert tab, and then click on From Drive. This pulls up your Google Drive with all of your folders listed. If you want to share one of these folders into your site, all you have to do is select that folder, and now you get the option to insert at the bottom. And it's going to take that folder and embed the entire folder in your drive, or in your site, I'm sorry. When visitors come to the site, let me click on my preview at the top of the page. They're going to be scrolling through your content, and then they're going to come to this window that looks like just a list of documents. So instead of showing a tile that has the name of the folder, it just gives a small window that kind of peeks into that folder and gives a listing of all documents that are listed within the folder. One thing to note with this, it's going to always list the documents in alphabetical order, not by the last one that you inserted or the last one you changed, but it just defaults to be alphabetical order. Just something to keep in mind. I'm going to close my preview to get back to editing. And I just want to quickly go over one more thing with embedding a folder of documents on your site, and this is really important. If you have your folder set to be private to you or only shared to a specific set of people, that folder of documents that you've embedded in your site won't be visible to viewers unless they're the ones that you've shared it with. So if you want to make this so that anybody that visits your site can see these documents listed, you have to go over to your Google Drive and set the sharing settings so that they're visible to anybody with the link or visible to the public. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I go to a different tab and go to Drive, within Drive, you're going to find that folder. So in my case, it was called, if I go back to From Drive, this was my Google Certification Certificates folder. So in Drive now, if I go down, here's my Google Certification Certificates folder. If I select that folder and then click on this little plus person up here for my sharing settings, you'll see if I go to Advanced that it's private and only I have access to this document. So to make this viewable on my website, I need to change that. So I'm going to click on the Change link. And now if you set this folder to either of the top two levels, it will then allow anybody that goes to your site to view that folder. So if I click on the anyone with the link option and set it to on the bottom here to view only, because I don't want them editing my folder or anything inside of it, and then click Save, and then click Done. Now if I go back to my website, anybody that gets to this part of my site will be able to view the files listed in that folder. Another thing that comes in really handy when you're working in Google Sites is to add different collaborators. So those are people that are going to work on your site with you, or in your students' case, if you pair them up into pairs or put them into a group that's going to be working on one site together, they're going to need to have access to the site, all of them, not just one student. So if they click on the Share with Others option up in the top bar, you can then go ahead and invite whoever you would like to this specific site. So I could add other collaborators. For example, my colleague Derek, proper name, or Tony. And when you click Send, it's going to invite those people to your site. They now have editing access to your site. If I scroll down in my list here, you can change that. So if I wanted Derek to edit, but I only wanted Tony to be able to view the published site, I could set that. So once we finish working on the site and we publish it, Tony will be able to see it, but he can't make any changes. I'm going to save that. And if at any time you want to remove someone from this list, you'll just go next to their name and click on the X, and it will remove them, and you just do have to click on Save Changes. So now these people that I've invited have full access to the entire site. As of right now, this is early February 2018, Google has not made it so that you can grant people's editing access to only specific pages within your site. I've been told that that's the plan in the long run, but if you give someone editing access to your site at this time, they have access to every page on the site. So just keep that in mind. If you set up groups of students to work together, they will all have access to all of the pages on their site that they have access to. One other thing that comes in really handy when you're working within Google Sites is sometimes you like to separate the different areas of content within your site. So I have two sections of content here, this being an image and this being my embedded Google Drive folder. And I want them to be visually separated a little bit so that when people are visiting my site, they can tell them apart. If I scroll over any section of my site, I get this color palette on the left. And if I click on that, it lets me change the background color of that section. So they have the regular, which is just white. In this template, emphasis 1 is just a light gray, and emphasis 2 is like a darker charcoal style color. So I'm going to select that. You can also do an image background. And with the image background, it lets you choose from your own images, and it also lets you do an image search to add an image in the background of that section of your site. Once I've added that, if I preview my site, now you'll see I have my white background followed by my charcoal background, and it really just separates those areas of content really nicely so that people don't kind of get confused as to where one section ends and another begins. I'm going to exit my preview. And the last thing I really want to go over with you here is I'm going to add some text to the page. So I'm going to add text. Now, if I highlight my text on the page, you do have some options along the top for formatting. And I did show these in an earlier video, but I want to just go over this again. Your fonts are kind of predetermined by the theme that you've chosen to add to your site. So once you add a theme and choose a font within that theme, a font family, your formatting is really only going to be allowed, you're only really allowed to change your bold and italicize, whether that's on or off. You can center, left, or right justify the text within the text box. You can number or bullet within your text box to create lists. And you can hyperlink your text to go out to an external website. You can also change it from normal text to basically like a bolded title, or you can change it to kind of like a less emphasized text as well. But that's all the options you have when you're formatting your text. Some people don't like that, but I personally think that's really great when students are working within sites because it limits them on what they're able to take time and kind of waste time trying to format. Instead, they're just focusing on getting the correct information into the site. And then the last thing I really want to show you is don't forget that you can move text, any of the elements on your site around just by clicking and dragging them. And remember, when you're dragging them into different parts of the site, whenever you get that blue line, that shows you different areas you can move that item to. So if I, again, grab my text box and now put it on top of the image rather than next to it, it now links it to the top of the image, and now they're vertically stacked rather than horizontally. So those are your basic options.